Hi, welcome back. This is the second episode of KV Leadership Matters. I'm back with Rami Abusaif. Hello, Rami.
Hey, Mina, nice to see you again.
So we were planning on this being sort of a guest series, but I think we had so much left on the table the last time that we wanted to come back and just lay a foundation here for who KV is, what we do, why we do it. And we're going to continue with just Rami and I for quite a bit before we bring other guests. So, for better or worse, you're stuck with us for a little bit.
I hope our audience isn't too disappointed. And I also hope you're not too disappointed. I think it'll be fun, and I'm looking
I,
forward to it.
I think with everything, there's a challenge and then there's like a silver lining. And I think the idea of having guests, I think is cool, and I think we'll get there. But one of the things that you and I had discussed before recording this was a lot of people had a lot of questions about KV. They're very interested, and we want to feed that interest. And I think having somebody like you who's experienced and knows the organization really well, we can get through a lot of these nuts and bolts, and then later on talk about some of the more nuanced, business related, service related concepts. And I'm excited about those too. And I think the conversation that you and I just had about, is this still KV Leadership Matters? Is this still the same series? And yeah, it is. So let's put up the intro slide and welcome everybody to the second episode of KV Leadership Matters. And since you're no longer a guest, you are a co-host. We took your name off the intro slide, so unfortunately your name is no longer in lights. Are you disappointed?
No, this feels like a promotion more than anything. This is I'm honored to be a co-host. I'm honored to be, a member of the Leadership Matters series. And because we had so much fun last time, I was almost sad to think that I would not be on this, going forward. And I'm excited that now we can do this together. And as you said, when we have speakers, it'll be fun to kind of do those interviews together and discuss those in a group of three rather than, just one-on-one. So
Or
I,
four.
or
Oh,
four.
like I love the the OCD of the the Zoom recording, and you could have the night. So yeah, I
Yep.
think there's a very promising future for KV Leadership Matters that begins right here. So
Yes.
uh,
Absolutely.
why don't we go with the next slide, which is the values. And I think you and I wanted to talk a little bit more about our fourth value, which is striking a balance between philanthropy and fiscal responsibility. I think the reason we wanted to start with that is that balance between giving, because we are a charity, and also holding people accountable is where the ethos of the organization comes from and where the name came from. So our next slide is the name and the tagline. So Koinonia Ventures, empowering opportunity through fellowship. So Rami, you've been with the organization for, I would say, probably 1/5 of its existence at this point.
Yes,
That's about
exactly.
right.
That's
Yeah,
exactly it. Yeah.
that, that's really cool. Um, so what what kind of drew you to that balance between Koinonia and Ventures, and why is that so important to you?
Well, maybe we can also start, and I might just flip the question on you for a second.
Sure.
So, how did the organization get its name? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that background, right? Because I think it's a very interesting name. And on the first episode, you noted it was a Greek word, and in Greek it means fellowship, and
Yeah.
venture obviously means ventures, and it's a unity of those two ideas. But maybe before, just again to kind of make this more of an introductory session for some of our followers, where did the name come from? How did you guys like land on this name?
So I'll tell you that as the official diocese of the official charity of the New York and New England diocese, there's always, just like there's a balance between Koinonia and Ventures, like fiscal responsibility and philanthropy, there's always a balance between the sort of technical executive branch of the organization, which you're a part of in terms of doing the work and making sure that from a business standpoint, there's logical progression, and this is the projects that we evaluate, and this is how we evaluate them. These are the projects that we fund, and this is why we fund them. This is the support. So all that technical stuff, and then there's sort of the church part of it. And anybody who's Coptic, anybody who's part of a large Christian organization knows that to a certain extent, it's listen, the bishop said, and I think KV is one of those like really unique, like precious examples of what great synergy you can get when you have that harmony between the church side of things, the leadership side of things, and then the technical side of things, like the things that require somebody like yourself with a business degree. And I'll remind you, I don't know if I mentioned this the first episode. I at the time when we first started this, I had very, very little business experience. I wasn't running my own practice yet. I didn't have the leadership degree from business school. I didn't have really any sort of subject matter expertise. And the people that we brought in, people with a PhD in economics, MBAs, people studying their MBA, people working in finance, people with project management experience, people in consulting. These are all the people that we brought in. Ultimately, none of them decided the name because we were thinking about like, oh, what about this? What about that? And Abuna G, so Abuna Girgis, like from Long Island, he was also one of the co-founders of this, under the leadership of Emba David. And he met with Emba David, and he came back and he was like, yes, I spoke with Sayedna, and we want the name to be Koinonia Ventures. And we were all like, what? And the longer we've had the organization, the more I actually feel like it's like the perfect name, and everything that we do. And you were just there for our in-person meeting over the break, and everything comes back to how do we live up to those two key parts of our identity, so that we're not just ventures where it's like, oh, sorry, like whatever it is that you think that we are, we're not a charity, like you have a loan and you have to pay it. Like, no, but we are a charity, right? We're not just ventures, but also we are a different kind of charity. We're not a charity that's just kind of like, oh, take the money and like, oh, whatever you're going to do with it is fine. Like, no, there's a fiscal responsibility that comes with it. And having that Koinonia aspect of how we fund the projects, and for those two things to be constantly ingrained within each other and not sacrificing one for the other, I think is where we really get our ethos. And I take zero credit. And actually, like, I'll be honest, like when we first heard it, we were like, what? like why is that? Like, okay, fine. Like, whatever. We're not going to argue. Like, let's just go with it. But the more time that passes, the more perfect it really comes across.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll tell you, and I'll answer your question in a second, but you saying that also reminds me of some, and maybe we could talk about this on another episode, but that same idea of when you first hear of an idea, or you first hear of a business venture, how it might not sound that great right up front, but part of what we do is to kind of take that shock, walk away, analyze it, and then come back and say, well, actually, you know what? We ran the numbers, and this is a pretty interesting venture, right? This is
Absolutely.
something we should do. So maybe on another episode for those, we could talk about some of that process as well. But to answer your original question, and I'll repeat it for everyone because I know I took us down a rabbit hole. Mina had asked me, based on Koinonia Ventures, based on what I've learned so far, or even before I've learned this much about the organization, what drew me to join Koinonia and to be a member of this wonderful team, as well as an active donor for the organization. And everything you just said about the name, I think resonates with me because it's such a revolutionary idea to take the idea of charity and to really leverage all these different tools that we have at our disposal and empower people, right? So it's right, in bold at the bottom of the slide, empowering opportunity through fellowship, but really giving people the tools that they need to succeed. And in a lot of cases, it happens to be capital, right? You can give people money, and they can, it's the whole adage of like, teach a man to sorry, give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you'll feed him for a lifetime. And this is actually, giving them the capital to buy the fishing rod. Like, where'd the fishing rod come from? Right? And this is that idea of here's the money. It's not yours to just spend, but rather you have a responsibility to repay it. And that gives you ownership over it. That gives you a feeling of empowerment. And I think when I heard that, it really resonated with me, and how we can take this really, novel concept, this great idea of, altruism with some strings attached that allows someone to stand up, on their own 2 feet, pull themselves up, and really lift themselves out of poverty and those around them. And that's really, that was the biggest draw for me personally.
And I think that the business partners see that and feel that with this idea that we had 5 years ago, that the business partners would want to repay back the loans because they know that the money that they're giving back is going to go to somebody else in their community. And we were told that'll never work. Like, people don't think that way. And
Yeah.
there are locations where that sense of camaraderie and that sense of fellowship, not every location, right? Like, we're working on how to make this place more like that place, and how do we leverage and make sure that the benefits that we're getting here we're also getting there. But we do have locations where that sense of community is so strong that we have
Yeah.
100% repayment. That is crazy. That, like, I never, like, we never set repayment as a critical metric, because we never wanted to sacrifice the Koinonia for the ventures, right? Yes, we want them to repay their loans, but we wanted to maintain that sense of identity as a charity. Where, okay, like, we're not going to get 100% repayment. And
Yeah.
the reason that we're getting 100% repayment at those locations is not because we're so difficult and so strict and so tough. We like to be firm, but the reason that they're doing that repayment is because of that sense of fellowship. So empowering opportunity through fellowship is not just for us, not just the people that are working or the people that are donated, or they are benefiting by getting their business, but they're also empowered to give opportunity to other people through fellowship, which is like this almost like 3-ring circus of empowerment, which is amazing.
Yeah. And it goes back to, again, that same like fiscal responsibility and balancing, philanthropy and fiscal responsibility. And it also goes to sustainability, which we don't have to discuss here. But as Mina mentioned, right, it's 100% success rate at most of the locations. Overall, as an organization across all 7 locations, it's a 97% success rate. Someone who looks at bank financial statements for fun, I can tell you that is not that is not the number that banks are seeing with
And
success
I
rate.
don't like to advertise that number. There was a reason I was like very like deliberate about like like, because I don't want people to think like, oh, that's the reason to donate. So
No, no.
let's go to our last slide just so we can see the real reason to donate, which is our business partners. So people can go to koinoniaventures.org, and that dash in the middle there is critical, because otherwise you go to a different organization. So koinonia-ventures.org. And I think that all of these business partners and their success stories and their ability to pay it forward and provide success and sustainability for other people, I think that's a huge thing. I do want to keep this episode shorter. I had some complaints from the people with the attention span problem that I have, that they wanted the last one to be shorter. I was like, but it was good, right? They were like, yeah, maybe you can shorten it a bit though. So let's keep this one short, unless you have anything else pressing to add about that tension between Koinonia and Ventures.
No, thanks for keeping me honest on the time, because I could talk about this for days. So I appreciate it.
So we'll sign off for now, and hopefully have another episode for everybody soon.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me again, and actually for promoting me to co-host. Looking forward to it.
Love it. I love it.
All right. Take care, everyone.